My name is Audrie Ford. Are the judges ready? Yep. Tara? In an old schoolhouse in Connecticut, all covered with vines, lived 20 little girls in 2 straight lines. In 2 straight lines, they broke their bread. At least, what bread there was to break. Every store in town told them they weren't allowed to shop there. The stagecoach wouldn't even give them a ride to the next town over so that they could buy food for their school. And on top of breaking bread, they were dealing with broken windows and doors and worrying at night if the protesters outside would get into their school and follow through with all of their threats. But in 2 straight lines, they broke their bread, and they brushed their teeth, and they went to bed. And they had to wrap up so tightly in their blankets because no heat was there, and no one would give them wood for their fireplace. Not even the church would help them. But these 20 little girls, in rain or shine, woke up before 9 in the morning and went out with Miss Prudence Crandall leading them through their town. Prudence Crandall was someone destined to change society. She opened her school for little colored misses in October of 1833. And those 20 little girls stood in their 2 straight lines, and the oldest one was not Madeline, but Sarah. Sarah Harris. And not only does Miss Prudence Crandall have so much to teach us through her story, but Miss Sarah Harris teaches that facing a challenge doesn't always mean you'll win, but it means you will gain something either way. Sarah's Schoolhouse, based on the story of Prudence Crandall's schoolhouse in Connecticut, originally written in 1833 and based on the diaries of the 20 students of Miss Prudence Crandall's school for little colored misses. These 20 little girls came from all over the United States at the call of Miss Prudence Crandall. But the first to come was Sarah Harris. And it was her that started this revolutionary change in the way little colored girls were taught in the South of the United States. She came one day eagerly seeking out Miss Prudence Crandall, who taught a school for young white girls in her town in Connecticut. And she begged, please teach me anything. I want to know. I want to be like the other girls. The only difference is that I am dark and they are light. And they try and tell me that's why I'm not allowed to read. That's why I can't touch the books. That's why I don't know how to count my numbers right. But please, if you teach me, I will pay you. I will give you everything, and I'll teach my little sister, and I will help all the little colored girls in our town, and they will learn. Sarah Harris was desperate. She wanted to be like the other girls that she saw skipping with their school books and learning things, and they looked so happy when they were learning. And Prudence Crandall knew the town would not approve. But she entered Sarah Harris in as a student. And the reaction was exactly as she expected. Everyone else pulled their daughters out, and the school was threatened with closing because they could not afford the costs of running a school for one student. The rent was raised. The pastor in town told her to send Sarah Harris away, but Sarah Harris begged, please, missus, I want to learn. I can learn too. And so at Sarah Harris's urging, this 20-year-old girl that couldn't even look at a book and tell you what it said, couldn't even write her own name, was escorted with her teacher. And they gathered up other colored girls from all around and said, come, you pay me. I won't charge you as much as I do the others, but that means you won't have as nice of things to learn with, but I will teach you. You'll learn how to write, you'll learn your arithmetic, you'll learn grammar. You'll be able to look at a book too, and you'll know what it says, instead of wondering what the light people are keeping away from you. Miss Sarah Harris so much of her time, not only to learning, but to protecting the other girls in the school for little colored misses. The entire town rose up against those 20 girls in their 2 straight lines when they went out into the streets looking for anything that anyone would give them. They took scraps, they took the bare necessities, and they begged for it. And they said, please, we just want to learn too. We are no different from you. And Sarah Harris stood at the front of the line. When the policemen came, it was she that went to jail. When they needed to raise her bond, it was her that worked and told them how to get the money so that she could be bailed out. When the abolitionists came calling in support of Prudence Crandall's school, her voice led them. It was this girl that could barely read, that only knew her basic arithmetic, that had been told her whole 20 years she would never be as good as the light-skinned girls just down the street, that was helping to change her town. And not only did her town change, but New York and Brooklyn became involved. And lawyers from all over the United States were sent in by some of the most prominent abolitionist writers. It was all with a girl that couldn't even pick up a pen just a few months earlier. Tears were wet. That school was often cold, the books often ruined. But Sarah Harris and those 19 other girls learned. When the school closed in September because Prudence Crandall found it too difficult to keep it running, and Prudence Crandall moved away from that small town in Connecticut, Sarah Harris stayed with her younger sister May and said, now May, they tell us we're not as good. They tell us we'll never be as good. But you and I just fought for something that means so much to us. Now we learned. We lost the school. And we ain't never going to get it back because they never going to let us back in that town. But we know now, and you and I can teach other girls just like us. That old schoolhouse in Connecticut, all covered with vines, that once held 20 little girls in 2 straight lines, is now a monument of a failure that turned into one of the greatest successes in education in the United States. And it's all because Miss Sarah Harris and Miss Prudence Crandall stood at the front of that line, and they helped those girls break what bread they had. They taught them how to read. They taught them how to write. And they gave them the voice that everyone else had always told them they would never have.